I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Everybody ready over there? All right, I'll call this meeting to order for the Lincoln Planning and Zoning Board. If I could ask for a roll call to start with.
Okay, it's Jim Higg,
I'm here.
Tom Wilson,
Here.
Eddie Miles here, Kelly Durham,
Here.
Roy Griffin,
Here.
Eric Hills,
Here.
Ona Underwood, here, Miss Terry Lewis,
Here.
Wally Watley,
Here.
Sherry Sprague.
Here.
All right. If I could ask everybody to stand for invocation and pledge. Is there anybody that would prefer to do the invocation today? All right, I'll do it myself. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for the blessings that you've given this country and also this town of Lincoln. We thank you that you have us in a country that we can govern ourselves. We ask you to continue to look after this country and the leaders in both the federal government and also us here today, that we may make the decisions that are best for the city of Lincoln as long as it's within your will. We ask this in the name of the Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business, of course, as always, approval of the current agenda. I know you gave us some more information on an item, but there's no changes to the actual agenda at this point?
That's correct.
Okay. So unless anybody has any other concerns of the agenda? Now I'll ask for a motion.
I make a motion to accept.
Motion on the table for accepting the agenda as it stands.
I second.
Second on the table, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, also, next item will be approval of the minutes from May 16th from 2023. I see everybody has their package, so I assume everybody's had a chance to glance over those and see if there are any changes that need to be made or additions. Everybody happy with those? If there are no discussion, then I'll ask for a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion acceptance and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. All right, we ready?
Ready.
All right, the first order of new business is a petition has been filed by the Coleman Company Incorporated on behalf of Keystone Homes requesting to rezone 20.16 acres located at 09th.
As far as the utilities go and stormwater management, this is your normal, Rankin project where we're going to manage our stormwater on site. We do plan to dig 2 large ponds on site to detain stormwater and treat it before it gets discharged to the wetlands. As far as utilities go, we do have capacity with Rankin, and we do have a commitment from them as far as providing water and sewer. We had a neighborhood meeting last week. It was actually well attended, and heard a lot of concerns, from the residents. And as you can imagine, traffic was the main one. You know, West Ninth is a main corridor that goes east to west and west to east here in Rincon. And we have commissioned a traffic study. It's underway. I do have preliminary counts. As of the first week of May, when they collected the data, the current traffic counts on West Ninth were 8,600 cars per day. Our site, what we're gonna propose here, in the AM peak hour would generate 75 trips per hour, you know, in the peak hour. And in the PM peak hour, it would be 101 trips. So just a small fraction of the, you know, of the traffic that's actually on West Ninth. The reality of the traffic volume on West Ninth is, you know, it's there. There's not a lot of right of way to do improvements on West Ninth, like widening and, you know, that type thing. So that volume on West Ninth is here, and there's not a whole lot that we can do about it. But what we can do is help mitigate where we access West Ninth. So what we're committed to do is whatever improvements are put forth in the study, we'll complete those improvements. And what typically with this kind of count from this type of site, what you would see is, you know, you'd have a right turn lane into the townhomes, and you would have a left turn lane coming out of our neighborhood, you know, on to West Ninth to keep the wait times down coming out of this, you know, of this townhome project. This project is planned to be maintained by an HOA. It'll be a private project, so there will be an HOA that's commissioned to maintain, you know, the roads in here and all the landscaping and everything. What we you know, have planned is, you know, this is intended to be low cost, low maintenance living. So you know, that HOA would take over the responsibilities of maintaining this development. With me tonight, I've got two reps from Keystone. We got this is Mr. Kroll.
Lamar Kroll and Myron Fowler with me. He's passing out a couple of these little handouts which basically incorporate this as well as a few other notes. We what we're targeting here is the workforce housing that everybody keeps talking about. These are intended to be built for sale. So we're talking about property owners living in the city. We're estimating the price point starting about $250,000 for the smaller homes. We're planning 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. Now, what we found from building this product in the past, we tend to get young singles, starter families, maybe couples. Usually when they have a child, they're there for a short while and then they're looking for somewhere with some room for the kids to roam. And we label it right-sizers, basically empty nesters. I've actually built one of these for my brother, my sister, and my mother over the years. And it's a good fit at the right stage of life. Again, affordability around $250. To give you some examples, we've got 3 communities within 10 minutes of here. Blandford Crossing, our entry level to get in the door at Blandford right now is $354,000. Sherwood, which is in the city, just right across the train tracks here, $313,000 is the lowest price point we have in that neighborhood. Timberlake, just a little farther out in the county, $303,000 is our lowest price point there. Just to try to give you some idea of where we're looking at price point wise here. This would be able to get some people in owning their own home at a lower price point, and not have to take care of a yard as well. 1-car garages are planned for the 3 bedrooms. We do have drawn a dog park amenity, which from research keeps coming up as the most requested item for townhome communities, and actually neighborhoods is either walking trails or dog park are the few thing people ask for right now. And as was mentioned, we did a town hall meeting, and one of the topics, traffic was number one, hands down. And beyond that, one of the neighbors mentioned place for children to play, which we discussed, and we're trying to figure out how best to utilize that. Either if there's enough demand, it might be no dog park, no park for the child, or there's some little pockets around the buildings that we could create some additional area. But as Neil mentioned, these are, crudely engineered because, we're at the very beginning here. So we're not sure how big those ponds are gonna end up being. There may be a little more room to create a little more park. That's unsure of right now. Green space was mentioned, and we have, 4 acres? I've walked the property, it's been a little while, but the wetlands were not truly wet at that time. I haven't set foot on it since.
Yeah.
And after everything, we did have a couple of positives from the town hall meeting, positive feedbacks. They were nice folks. Neighbors recognize the need for workforce housing. They see the newspapers, they know what's happening. And they were very complimentary of our setup with the townlands. Traffic, number one concern. And that's all I have. Can we answer the question?
About answer any questions, you like?
Open up to the board first.
My first thing is, and I'm just gonna be honest with you, every time a developer comes in here, I'm the first person to say, can we have a green space and a playground for kids? I never thought I'd see a dog park before I saw a playground, I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need dog parks, when you're gonna have that, you're gonna have kids, and we don't want kids on the streets, we want them occupied. And, playgrounds are going to be necessary, because that's gonna be young families or small kids. Lots of them. How many units, or is that again, 100?
102.
102.
And how many of those do you think could potentially be children? Is there any thought on that?
There,
School age?
from our past track record building this type of product, I would say 10 to 15% would have small children.
I know Karima Circle on Fort Howard Road is tremendously
Mhm.
tremendously.
Well, prices have gone up considerably, driving some of that, I guess.
But I mean, it's mostly children, there's a ton of
Yeah.
kids in there, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's gonna draw families with kids and will be playgrounds and green space.
So,
My first
to
concern.
me, there's no difference between a dog park or a child park. Just getting rid of the dog park and labeling it a child park, if that's
And putting playgrounds.
playground equipment is quite expensive, and then you put the burden of insuring it on the community as well.
Cause, Karima Circle has a playground, Lost Plantation has several playgrounds. Other subdivisions do have playgrounds.
They do, with only 100 homes, it gets to be pretty expensive per person.
And then where's your main entrance going to be? Howard Street?
It will more than likely be off of West Ninth. Howard is substandard. That'll be, not envisioned to be the main access point.
All right, and then what about, the decelerate line for turning because of the traffic issue on
Right.
Ninth Street?
I do anticipate the study coming back and telling us that we need to have a right turn lane. Yes, ma'am.
It's very difficult getting off Howard Street when, in
I want to remind everybody that we're here to talk about rezoning the property. I understand that this is a project that you would like to put on here, but we also have to keep in mind
That's
that
right.
if we rezone this, you may or may not build this property. I know you have every intention to, and I don't doubt that you do. But that's my concern as well, of course. Once we go from an R4, to a more, intense, zoning, that's always the issue. And I don't have to I don't think I have to mention that to you guys. You guys know that that's always a difficult thing to go to, you know, more of an impact zone rather than going the opposite direction. As a matter of fact, this same piece of land,
Probably
we-
know this. We're gonna discuss on the same piece of land right here.
yeah, the same piece of land we had seen, you guys had brought to us, well, not the same exact situation, but it was brought to us to do residential homes. And I think they were able to fit somewhere close to 40 or so, and they were asking for a variance for more than that. And that was denied, mainly because of the issues that you brought up, was the density issue, which of course brings up traffic and some other concerns. My thought is, even though I agree that there needs to be some thought to, you know, we have some new business that we know is gonna be coming in this area, we are gonna have to, try to make accommodations. That doesn't necessarily mean that we should change zoning for that area. I mean, my thought is this: if we're building a project like this, or something similar, if we change the zoning, something similar would certainly come up. It's about a 5-minute commute to get to that new site that we're talking about at the end of Fort Howard Road. It's not a very far commute. We may have to think about areas a little bit further out rather than in an area that's already fairly congested, not ridiculous. And my other concern, of course, is, you already mentioned it, because we don't have the right-of-ways available to improve, not without real expense, which would mean moving homes and so forth. We don't have the available area to expand on Blue Jay. So we're limited to what we can do to help with this traffic issue. And my thought is, we're adding to the traffic issue on something that we know at this point is not gonna be an easy fix. If it comes to the point where it becomes so bad we have to do something, I think it's gonna be very expensive for the city to figure out a way to solve it. So my 2 cents on this is, I know I'm gonna hear from this city's position, and also I'm gonna give the opportunity for the public to state anything they would like to say in just a moment. But my thought is, I think the residential R4 is a better fit. It's already there, and I think that would be a better fit.
And Jim, while you're talking, I realized too that we've got to remember the traffic flow out of the county is such that people are having alternate corridors, and 9th Street is an alternate corridor.
It is, and I thought about that when I was looking at this, and of course, the good part about that is, in the next year or two, well, probably 2 or more years, when they get the Effingham Parkway, isn't that what they're calling it now?
Yes.
Effingham Parkway? When that becomes available, instead of the traffic leaving this, and I know you guys are still working on this, I know we're preliminary, we're just talking about at this point changing the zoning, but if I remember right, last time we looked at this property, there was a concern about the wetlands and how you're gonna get that out of there. I realize you're not here to discuss that today, but I don't think that was fully resolved, and I realize you've got some engineering work that can be done to, there's always something you can do, I realize
Sure.
that, but I'd like to see that when this project, if it does move forward as is, that's gonna be a big concern of mine, and making sure that we spend the money necessary to make sure that that is gonna be handled appropriately. And when I say appropriately, I mean something that it works itself. It's not something that we need to have pumps or anything maintained. Usually natural flow is the best way to go. So that's where I sit on that.
Yeah, and I'll just, to your point, I did ride down Broom Lane, which is behind, so it's south of this, and this wetland is drained by a ditch that's dug in the, there's the southwest corner of the wetland over here. There's a ditch that runs from that corner all the way
Do you want to show it
down.
on the bit, like, can you show it
directly
on that
to-
bigger one?
Yes, so
Thank
there's
you.
a ditch that begins here and runs that way, it goes under Broom Lane. There's a large storm pipe that goes under Broom Lane, and then that's continued on to Dasher Creek.
That's just great.
So that is in place, and what we would do is we would tie to that ditch, so that's how we would de-water that wetland.
Have you guys had any preliminary look at that as far as engineers take a preliminary look at that, and if that's
We
feasible?
had the wetlands delineated, but
You did have
that's
that,
as far as.
okay, and as, I know I'm changing the question, but, that was another thing I was gonna bring up. You were talking about the wetlands, they don't look wet. You and I, we
Can't
all
use
know
them,
whether
though.
we think they
We
look wet or
can't
not,
use
we
them
have to go
regardless.
by what their
Right.
delineation is. So does this map, or let me show you what I've got, make sure you know what I'm looking at. This one.
Yes.
Is this pretty representative of where the, wetlands have been delineated?
Yes, sir, that
Okay.
is the current line. Yep.
All right, so this is pretty fairly accurate.
It is.
And that gives you, because that to me makes a difference too. If we were to say, sure, let's change the zoning, the amount of wetlands on here would limit how many? Because if we go to
That's.
R8, on this particular, on 20 acres of land, could be a lot more than 100 if somebody spent the money to, you know, mitigate the wetlands and so forth. But,
Was it 4 acres, 4 and change?
4.4 acres, yeah.
4.4 acres. The cost to mitigate wetlands for residential is just prohibitive.
Yeah, usually,
It just
especially in a project this
complete
small.
deal killer.
Yeah.
In a project this small, really even R4 kills it. The cost of the land, is just so high and it is so well located in here. Just like you mentioned, the short drive to potential hires, it's a deal killer typically.
And Mr. Head, your point is well understood. I mean, and what we're looking at in perspective is we're asking for 102 townhomes, right? And if, with the R4, you could build 40 to 50 homes. So truly, we're asking for 55, 60 more, and that's
About
it,
double.
right? So
Yeah.
that's incrementally speaking, traffic and those kinds of impacts. I mean, that kind of change is not a lot of traffic, right? You're talking 5 or 6 cars an hour. That's the kind of change that you're talking about per, based on traffic counts.
I agree. However, it's a little change, and then the next project, which this will certainly, spark other other stretches of land along there. It sets a precedence, of course. You got a little bit here, and then, of course, we would be obligated, almost obligated, if you will, to, grant variances again for the same type of project until a little, and we're adding a little bit more to something that I don't think right now the city has the means to fix. Or personally, I think we need to get that infrastructure fixed first, and then I wouldn't have had such a concern about this. I really wish, and I know they've looked at this in the past, to do something with Blue Jay, particularly say from the railroad track, the second railroad track, I don't know which one that is, the one closest to that other subdivision down, if they could do something with it, so yeah, I'm still my concern. I will say, since I have thrown out a bunch of negative items, I will say I have seen a lot of your Keystone stuff, and you guys do a good job, so
Thank
that's great. But I also have to remember, we're looking at changes to the zoning, and I just don't want us to lose the fact that, yeah, Keystone's a great company, I feel like they do a good job. We're here to talk about rezoning, and once we rezone it, I doubt somebody's gonna come back and go, hey, let's go back to R4. Could happen, but I doubt it. So once we do it, it's done. And we're gonna be looking at, if not their project, something similar to this. No doubt. It'll be something similar.
You're correct. It will be developed at some point.
Yeah.
The demand will reach a point where it'll.
And I think you guys did a good job. I also like the fact that they're 5-unit buildings for the most part. I think you got a couple of 4-unit buildings.
Yep.
I think in these type of developments, I think those are less of an impact rather than a 10 or 15 unit string of, so that opens up more area for some green space between them. It also makes it easier if there were ever to be a fire. It also makes it easier for that to the fire department to access the building if you only got 5 units that are, you know, engaged, rather than a building that's 15 or 10 or 15. So I think you did a good job with this. I think if anybody would have looked at doing it or another project, if you guys got out of it for some reason, I think that's a telemarketer, of course. So anyways, those are my pluses, I guess.
The density, and I guess you mentioned the width, it's all cost driven.
Mhm.
We did a little study in-house on a neighborhood we're developing elsewhere in actually Brunswick, between 60-foot lots and 50-foot lots. And the price to the consumer, when all is said and done, that 10 feet cost them $23,000. And with the home being basically the same, a little narrower, obviously, but the same equivalent bedroom count, size, garage, etc. But that's where it is. It's just very, very expensive. It's gotten more expensive, and awesome we have Hyundai, but that's driving cost up as well. Yes, certainly.
And I'd like to ask, and Terry may want to address this, because when you go from R4 to R8, that's 8 units per acre that's allowed under that zone, right? Terry?
So it's done a little bit differently for R8, I think because it's not single family. So for R4, it's 3.6 per acre. For R8, it's done, it's 30 per acre.
Which would be skyscraper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But once it's zoned that, what keeps anyone from doing, you and I talked
Right.
about that. If you
Right,
want to address
so,
that.
right, so one of the ways, and I learned this at with the last, rezoning that I had, one of the ways to, protect against, against maybe everything that could be done on an R8 parcel would be to enter into a development agreement as part of that. I think that's a fairly common practice, for the city with these kind of larger rezonings, because without that, you're correct, absolutely. I mean, if it were up to me, like, I wouldn't have a site plan requirement as part of the application. I mean, right now, we have to request that because that's in the code, but I wouldn't have it because it really comes down to is what's appropriate for the parcel, R4 or R8, and it shouldn't matter, what it looks like, because it's really, what's appropriate. Because again, like y'all said, y'all could walk away for some reason, somebody could come in and build 30 per, I mean, it would probably be very difficult to do with the wetlands, but we have to, we have to think about that kind of thing, even if not 30 and, more than 102. But that's where the development agreement can come in at the council level, where we can sit down with the applicants and agree to certain things that, that we want to see that they would be amenable to. It can limit the, even though it's R4 or R rezoned to R8, the density will be no more than X number of units, and there will be X amount of green space. Even things like the buffers, having, a greater buffer, greater vegetated buffer, things like that can be part of a development agreement. But you're right, without that development agreement, it's whatever is allowed in R8.
And another thing to consider, that I don't think we've discussed before, is when we look at something that could potentially end up being that large under RA, you also have to look at your ability to do emergency evacuations during hurricanes and storms, or other emergency situations. In 9th Street, the traffic situation there is horrendous right now. So, trying to get people out in emergencies and things, that street is just, that's a hard road to do this on, to me.
A couple things that I'll add as well. So, y'all know I do a staff report as part of this, look at the criteria that are set out in the code. And for the most part, I mean, those criteria can definitely go either way. The only part of it, though, that gave me concern was traffic, just like y'all have mentioned, like the neighborhood mentioned. I'm definitely encouraged by the fact that there's already a traffic study being prepared, because I think the results of that and the recommendations from that will be really important. And that's something that could also be incorporated into a development agreement. Now, I have heard that in terms of where, that council isn't necessarily supportive of having townhomes everywhere, but they have been supportive of having them in this area of the city. And I'm not saying just 9th Street, but just maybe, on this side of 21. And I think that you can see by some of those recent rezonings, where those other 2 projects are going. Those were 2, or one's built and one's going in right now. Those were both recently rezoned in 2020 and 2022 from R4 to R8. So, I think that speaks a little bit to what, to where council is looking to see some more non-single family residential uses.
So I'll ask, what's the official, input from the city on, I mean, I know you just gave me a bunch of input on, what would be the official input?
I would say
on
that in general, it meets the criteria. Like I said, the kind of the main concern is, is traffic, and that, that traffic study is gonna be important. As you know, we don't have a requirement for a traffic study right now, but, certainly we encourage it whenever we're looking at a significant rezoning like this, and the applicants were already, planning to do that as part of what they were doing. So I also appreciate that they had a neighborhood meeting. I think we've learned through some recent projects that is really important, and we're gonna be recommending that occur with rezonings, and probably conditional uses as well. Before they even come to planning and zoning board, we're gonna ask that they do that first, just so that, they can solicit input from neighboring residents, businesses, if there are businesses in the area, and be able to share that at planning and zoning and then at council.
Do you have, information from that? I mean, I heard what these guys mentioned, but do you have information from that? Was somebody from the city at that?
Nobody from the city was at the meeting, so we discussed whether it made sense for us to go or not. There were concerns, so we didn't want somebody to think that we were running the meeting, or that by being there, we were saying that we, supported or didn't support the request.
We did have, Councilman Kirkland did come by, so he stopped by,
We have
said hey.
30 to 35 people.
What's the date that the traffic study will be done?
I was expecting it on Friday, on the 9th, so, I got some data today, and, hopefully I have it by Friday of this week.
I'm just gonna say that I'm really concerned about traffic. I live on 9th Street, and this is beautiful, really great job, but it's sandwiched between 2 sets of railroad tracks, which are frequently used. And you get one here and one here in the middle of the day, they're not on a schedule, and it's just a mess. Like a mess. And I can get out and go the other way, because I'm going on 9th Street, right across the street from the railroad track. And while I love the sound of it, I hate having to get out in it when something has stopped. Because people don't hang out, and they're very, very, very ugly.
Yeah, not to mention during the week when kids are getting on the bus, you got kids that's nearly standing in the highway waiting to catch the bus on that street. They're nearly standing in the highway to catch the bus on that road. So that's not gonna be good.
No, but we need that, we really do need that, I hear that all the time, is that there's no place for these, especially these young people, or even the seniors, who wanna come in town and do something that's affordable, and that's wonderful. I think that's great, and they look good, and you've got endorsement that y'all are really good, but that's just something that I'm tired of answering all the time about why is there so much traffic. They get off 9th Street for the traffic, and lo and behold, there's bloody 21 just waiting for you. So that's the thing that concerns me. It's so
You know, we're looking at cost wise when it comes to certain things. I'm the type of person, cost doesn't matter to me. There's no measure for cost against safety, saving someone's life. I understand a lot what it costs for to make the project. Everything is beautiful, but there's no measure on what it'll cost to save someone's life for so many incidents, something for construction, what it costs to build a property. That's how often. And that's serious.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, I would certainly not equate, you know, this development being dangerous in any way. I mean, we design and build these types of neighborhoods all the time. To say that this is gonna make this area more dangerous, I don't think I agree with that. We can do things on the site to help with getting kids off this, street. I mean, there are things that we can do on the plan to help that.
I mean, that'll
But
be
just
good.
in its nature, I wouldn't say that this is gonna cause any danger.
No, I'm not saying it's gonna cause any danger. I'm saying there need to be issues for the building it, for the kids. We need to take that into consideration for the right of way, because they're standing on the highway.
I understand.
Not just build the properties and whatever layer.
Sure.
We need to put something in place so we can have a way to get in and out of it, so these kids, it's only gonna get worse if we don't even put that in this.
Understood.
I think he's got a good point, and, however, you do have or what you got laid out here, again, if this is, whoever does it's gonna be similar to this. But having a way to come in one side and out the other, sure, that makes it nice for a school bus, it makes it much safer if they can pull off and get the kids loaded on there. However, we still got the school board, which you well know, they also are thinking about, every time you make a turn, that's more time on their route that they've gotta deal with. So, but certainly, to me, it would make sense for the school board, if something like this would go through, it would make sense for them to pull into the neighborhood to load and discharge the kids.
Which they would do that, that's their first option if they can get in there and get out.
Right, which this looks like it could,
You know.
so, and I agree with you, that I think that may be a concern. As a matter of fact, when I was looking at this, and I know I was thinking about, dog parks and kid area, I would think it's a great idea to put up a small kiosk of some sort, maybe where maybe you guys can work this into your plan, your final plan, where maybe the kiosk for the mailboxes could also be an area that would make sense for a pickup for the kids. I don't know, I don't have experience with, is it a good idea to have a school bus stop where the mailboxes are? I don't know if that's an issue, but I mean, if there was a kiosk there of some sort that had cover, that would make it a more desirable neighborhood for families to move into that have younger kids, knowing, hey, kid's gonna get off at this, or get on the bus at this spot, and they've got some cover, some kind of cover. So that's just throwing it out there.
Well, and Ninth Street was never designed for this kind of traffic. It for years went Blue Jay Road, which went to Pine Knoll, nobody went to Pine Knoll.
Right.
And now it's the major corridor to get out of the city, and if you're coming from that direction, because traffic's got you stopped in 17 traffic, and McCall Road traffic's flowing from 9th Street to 21, you've got a red light nobody can get out at, because it seems like the state's struggling to manage the red light issue at 21 and 9th Street. And that red light will keep traffic backed up forever. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of issues on poor old 9th Street, and it seems to be, everybody seems to be, wants to be there right now. And it would be great, because I think those families need something. Nothing against mobile homes, but I'd rather see that, and something like that. But I would be hard pressed to go to zone up to R8.
Anybody else from the board? I know we've talked a lot, we've kind of beat to death
Piggyback
about
on
the traffic.
Piggyback on what they were saying too.
I'm sorry?
Whatever they were saying about the traffic,
Mhm.
so like
Traffic.
saying.
You're a lot of that way, aren't you, Betty?
With that, I'm gonna ask, is there anybody from the public, and if so, I'll ask you guys to step down for just a moment. Anybody from the public that would like to put some input at this time? And if you would, yes, thank you, come to the podium, and if you don't mind, give us your name.
My name is Jeanette Midell.
Okay.
I attended the meeting,
Uh-huh.
and he's correct about our concerns were about the traffic. And the safety of the residents who move in there getting out, and the safety of the residents that already live in that community. So, we did mention that, and then we mentioned the traffic, and he, the young man right there, stated that they're not necessarily going to, normally he said that people with children don't normally stay in townhouses, but I dare to differ, because townhouses are, occupied by families. And you're talking about a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, and no matter what state you go in, what city you go in that state, there are children living there, even here in Lincoln. So, and that was an issue we brought up, and then we also brought up the issue that they said that they would have the dog park instead of the park for the children. And we asked about that, but that's when he brought up that really people who live in these townhouses don't have children. So we wasn't really catering to that. So that was one of our concerns. But, you know, and just like he said, it looks nice, but we were just worrying about the safety. And we also told them about in the school buses and the road being so narrow. And then if you go into townhouses, even here in Lincoln, even though the buses go through them, it is so narrow. They don't allow for anything wide because they're trying to make their money off of the homes, and we do understand that. So that was our concerns.
And would you, you don't have to tell me exactly where you live, but I'm assuming.
Oh, cause I live in that area. Matter of fact, yeah.
Right off of Ninth Street.
Right off of Ninth Street, yes.
Any other, since you are at this point, the only person that was at that, well, other than you guys at that meeting, anything else that we should be thinking about that came up at that meeting, even if it wasn't a main concern? Obviously, I can tell the main concern was traffic.
Well, yeah, the traffic and the accidents, and the community talked about accident. And they also wanted to know how the size of the the size of the overflow for the water. How many gallons of water did it hold? But he was not able to answer that question. And
You know about the retention ponds?
yeah, and the retention pond, and they wanted to know the size of it, to make sure that it wasn't no flooding in that area when we do have these hard flash rains.
Right.
And they brought up that, and they was concerned about the sewage. The sewage issues, because one of the men that was at the meeting, he brought up that in his neighborhood, they put, not necessarily in this particular area, he said that they had issues with backup because you're putting so many, they said the issue of bringing in 100 and some homes, are they gonna accommodate the sewage to make sure that there's no issues with that? So, and you know, he said that he would check on it, but that was some of the things that they brought up.
Well, those are two good points, and I'll mention this on those. As far as the retention ponds, it's on them, or it'll be on their engineers. And they'll have an engineer that will, as he alluded to a little bit earlier, he mentioned that they haven't, we don't know how big those, exactly how big they're gonna be, because hydraulic, hydraulic engineer, what do they call those guys? Hydraulics? Anyway, that, I'm sorry?
Hydrologist.
Hydrologist,
Okay.
thank you. Hydrologist engineer would be, and that's what they do. I mean, they determine, you know, as you see there's a lot of streets, there's a lot of roof, we gotta do something with the water, and it's
Right.
that's what they do, to figure out how big that pond needs to be, how, once it does fill up, where it's gonna go, how it's gonna get out, how fast it's gonna move. So when they do their engineering, which hasn't been done yet, this is preliminary for them, and this is why, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but you guys are at the preliminary stage, because if this is not gonna work, they don't wanna spend all this money of engineering to find out it's not gonna work. So if this does go forward, that's where they would go next with that part of the engineering.
That's correct.
And, thank you. And then the second part was the sewage, same thing. We got folks that have to, you know, adhere to, you know, they check the lines, and they have to check flow and all that with the city, and the city is pretty good about watching that, I mean, because you're right, that is a concern. And what happens if it is a concern, or if it's necessary, sometimes you have to put in a pump station. I know that wasn't mentioned here, I don't know, that doesn't sound like that's gonna be necessary at this particular point, because of the location, but yeah, so those are good concerns, and I wanted to mention that that's things that we look at this board, but when people come with this, actually, it's usually these ladies sitting over here, and the city has taken the time to look into that, to make sure that, the infrastructure for supplying water and eliminating water, and also as well as, you know, other utilities as well, that makes sense to get in there, which I'm sure electricity is not an issue, but that's the other thing as well.
So that was basically it, and the access of, you know, the people being able to get out, and the people that live in the community being able to get onto 9th Street, you know, because our traffic is already heavy, already, you know, so that we were asking them that about maybe a turnoff, you know, like when you're getting ready to leave a place, you gotta like a little pull out.
Right, we
And
call that a
so-
decel lane.
A what?
A decel lane.
Okay,
which
in a
is what-
decel lane, we were concerned about whether or not would they be able to do that, but costs. Costs with the park, he brought up costs with the children park, he brought up costs with a few things. So, but, one of the ladies said, well, why don't you not put up so many apartments and use the cost for that, to
Yeah.
offset it. So that was basically, some of the things that we discussed at the meeting, that was the people that live in that area concerned.
Well, and I agree with you, and I think you guys, also realize that, I mean, you already mentioned that the decel lane is most likely gonna be the case
I
when the
have to
traffic
defer to
study.
the engineer on that one.
Yeah,
He's
when,
not
I know you
yet,
have a traffic
so,
study
yeah.
to do,
Yeah.
but I know that here on us board, we all like to see the decel lanes, on Highway 21, because it's it's a state road, we don't have as much control over that, we have to go what DOT says. But in this case, I think we would have more control over that, as far as, getting a reasonable, decel lane to get in there and out. I really appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to, if you're complete, yeah, you're finished. Anybody else? Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off. Anybody else from the public who would like to talk about this issue? All right. Any other comments from the board?
It would be nice to have the information from the traffic study to help us with our decision.
All right.
Is this something that you think we could, I'm just throwing this out there, that we could table it until we see the traffic study?
I'm not sure, me personally, I don't know that at this stage we would table it, yeah, because we're not looking for a final approval, on something like this. That's still something that they, still have the opportunity to bring about. So I'm not sure that,
Right now,
you can put that motion out there.
Right now, the thing on the table is doing
rezoning.
rezoning.
Right.
RA,
Correct.
from R4 to RA.
Right, and again, one more time I'll mention, if we rezone it, these guys have a great plan. And even if they don't do it, we're gonna end up seeing something very similar to this. As a matter of fact, this is about the best plan that I can see to use it if we go to an R8. I don't see any I don't see any real problems with the plan that they address on a piece of property that's an R8.
My biggest concern is the next person is going to eliminate why they can't go from R4 from R5 to R4 to an R8. And what precedents do we set across the board? And right now, I think that the biggest issue we have right now is rezoning and what it's doing. And until we can get,
Because this is city for the councilman will be having a meeting about rezoning, right?
Sorry?
What we could have,
who knows?
a class, a meeting about rezoning?
Yeah, we got one of those coming up. Any further input?
No, the only thing I wanted to add was, so I think based on the language that's in the, not even just our code, but state code, you do need to move forward with it. Now you can recommend approval as is, you can do it with conditions, or you can recommend denial. If you do condition, or even if you do conditions or denial, I would just be very specific so that you can give that direction to council. Definitely, the concern should be listed in there as well. You know, if you do want to, have council consider doing a development agreement to do things like y'all talked about, you know,
Are they not under a development agreement at this time for this
they're
project?
not.
Okay.
They're not. So that's something that would come about as, generally, where that would happen is between first reading and second reading. So there are 3 more steps to this project. We've got the public hearing, and then a first reading, and then a second reading. So at some point before second reading is when that development agreement would, be finalized and signed by all parties. But I think it's just, you know, I know I've said this to y'all before, but council always asks what planning and zoning board thought about the projects that are coming before them. And so, you know, when it's incorporated, I mean, I share what goes on at this meeting, but if it's incorporated into the recommendation, that helps them as well.
Okay. All right, at this point, I feel like we're probably ready for a motion. Again, we can motion for, again, at this point, I'm not sure it makes sense to table it, because we're still preliminary, but,
She explained we can't.
yeah, we really need to move forward on that. So, again, so we're looking for a motion for approval as is, approval with conditions, or recommendation for denial application as submitted. So as, it's been listed here, actually, I'll read just what it says. A recommendation for approval of application as submitted, secondly, recommendation approval for application with conditions, or recommendation for denial of application as submitted. So I guess I'm looking for a motion that would incorporate one of those 3.
I make a motion that we recommend denial, and that is based on 2 things. Both the uncertainty of the traffic situation on Ninth Street and the precedents that moving rezoning from these R4s to bigger rezonings, R5s and R8s are setting precedents. And
Okay.
that's what we've got to start guarding and watching. And council has said that too, so.
Okay, so as it stands right now, a motion is on the table for recommendation of denial of the application as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote on that, please. Just go down the list. if
All right,
you-
Mr. Jim?
I am agreeing with the motion.
Okay. Mr. Tom?
I don't agree.
Okay. Betty, I agree with the motion. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Roy? Mr. Eric?
No.
Mr. Moore?
I agree.
All right. Well, at this point, it shows as a motion as denial of the application as it stands. As you guys know, you'll go to city council from here, and they'll take our input and do it as they may. But having this information, I'm sure, helps them a lot, and we appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you've already gone through the trouble of, you know, showing us what this, you know, what a reasonable, you know, development of this at an R8 would be. So that gives us enough information to make some ideas and some recommendations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
What was the
Oh,
vote?
I'm sorry?
What was the vote count?
What was the overall vote count?
5 to 2.
5 to 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. When is this next city council meeting?
So the public hearing will be on June 26th, and then first reading is July 10th, and second reading is July 24th. So,
All right. All right, moving on to. Can we move forward?
Yeah, I got my stuff fell.
I'm sorry?
Dropped stuff.
my papers.
Oh.
Falling
No,
off
we needed to take a recess. What was going on?
I just wanted to show them off.
Just trying to be dramatic again, is that it? All right, well, I'll move forward then. Second item on the agenda for new business, a petition has been filed by the Michael Gilder, requesting a variance to construct a billboard 188 square feet larger than the permitted by the code, located at 0 North Columbia Avenue. The parcel is zoned general commercial, and the property is owned by Archie Mungeon Jr. Parcel number is R2180004. And if you would, just as before, would you mind giving us your name and who you represent, or the company that you're with, and who you're representing, Mr. Mungeon?
My name is Michael Gilder. I'm representing Premier Advertisements. Also, should I go ahead and pass these out? I had
Sure,
extra
that'd be
pictures.
fine. Yeah, sure. We're usually pretty informal.
It's all good.
However, I do like it.
Thank you. Thank you. I did it multiple times to make sure it looked okay.
Great, thanks. You said it was Premier Advertising?
Yes.
Got it.
So, my name is Michael Gilder. I'm 22 years old. I just recently graduated from Georgia Southern with a degree in business management, and I was very involved with the entrepreneurship club there. I've always thought like an entrepreneur my whole life, and I've always been really interested in real estate, which I've analyzed a bunch of different asset classes in real estate, and upon analyzing billboards, I thought that it was one of the best investments that I personally would want to do. And I talked to a lot of people from my hometown in Evans. It's near Augusta. And one guy, he recommended me this town and talked about the electric car battery plant and how this town was gonna, the population was about to increase. And so I ended up cold calling a lot of property owners to see if they'd be interested in me building a billboard, and that's how I met Archie. He's not here right now, but he'll most likely come to the city council meeting. And I met Archie and met him on the property and kind of went over what it would look like and what would happen. And he knew it's my first time doing it, and he decided to give me a chance, and we finally got an agreement signed. And I had done a lot of research into billboards because this would be the first one I've ever done, and I reviewed the codes, but I had read I think I read the Effingham County billboard regulations and not the Rincon City. So that was a big mistake that I made that I learned from. And I did not know that I was above the maximum required, but I had gone through so much work and just to get it under contract and to get it agreed upon, that I decided that I would like to just go ahead and apply for the variance and see if it were to pass. And my thought process behind it all was the main purpose of this billboard would be to advertise local businesses, especially in a city. Usually the billboards will advertise local businesses, and I thought this would be really good for the city of Rincon because, from my understanding, a lot of people commute through Rincon to Savannah, and I've read articles about how you guys want the development to go up, and I think a really good way to do that would be to advertise local businesses so the people that drive through the city that are going to Savannah know what's available to them, like what Rincon has to offer. So that was one of my main ideas and the main purpose for building this billboard. I would also like to say that the billboard does not obstruct the view of any surrounding business owners. I purposely have no intentions of trying to obstruct anyone's view, and it actually would remove view because there's a tree on the property that has very low branches that come out a little bit, and we would obviously have to get the tree removed, which would help the visibility towards the shopping center if you're looking at the property to the right of it, as well as strategically placed in the top left-hand corner of the property so that I'm not in anyone's way. It'll also be 15 feet above the ground where the advertisement will be, so to further ensure I'm not in anyone's way. There will be nothing inappropriate on the billboard. The sign will be well kept aesthetic. It will be a 12 by 24 sign. I know the codes only permit for 100 square feet, which would be a 10 by 10. And the reason why I chose the 12 by 24 is because that's the standard size of billboards is a 12 by 24, and I thought, because I had considered just building a 10 by 10 billboard, but my main concern is that it would look really funny with it being so small, and that I wouldn't be able to get it rented, and then I couldn't help advertise for local businesses. So I'm still considering a 10 by 10, but I'm very concerned with how small that is, and if it weren't to get rented, it would just be sitting there and it would not be good. I'm very flexible on height and square feet. I'm really not sure if I can do a 10 by 10. If I were to get denied, I don't know if I would do it. I'm still deciding on it. But another benefit is it would support a retired Rincon resident. Archie Mungen is the owner of the property, who I've met multiple times and negotiated, because he would be getting a percentage of the advertisement sales goes to the landlord. That's typical of billboards. So,
Can I
yeah.
ask if he's expressed interest in advertising on that billboard? Because he also owns a piece of property right behind that, I believe.
He's not, but I would be more than willing to let him do that for sure.
Right.
Absolutely, because I mean that would be that's just a perfect advertisement for it. So.
Look up to the board at this point.
And you said 10 by 10 would be too small?
Yeah, so I actually don't know of any 10 by 10 billboards. A 10 by 10 is extremely small. I actually talked to my manufacturer because I wasn't even sure if we could construct a 10 by 10, and he was hesitant and he didn't even know, so he had to check with some of the engineers. But it's possible, but it would just be really small. And he told me, he advised me that, you know, I'm not going to make the decision for you, but that might not be a good idea, because if I were to do a 10 by 10 and it doesn't get rented, it would, first, I think the sign would just not look very aesthetically pleasing at a 10 by 10. The standard is a 12 by
So
24.
Rincon is what? Maybe on the other code is 10 by
I'm sorry?
10? On the Rincon code is 10 by 10?
I think it's by square footage, right?
Yeah.
Right, it's 100 square feet.
100 square feet.
Yeah.
Is there a, what would a normal billboard height requirement maximum be? Because this is one that looks like it's on one of those metal or poles, the singular poles, and would be like 30 feet in the air, it looks like.
29 feet.
Well, so we don't have a,
Height restriction?
right, so, well, we do have a height restriction. I guess in terms of like a normal height for a billboard, I don't know. What the code permits is 20 feet in height and 100 square feet for the size of the actual billboard. And I think what Mr. Gilder is proposing is 15 feet. rather
Yeah,
than
that
the
one will
20.
be 15 feet.
I lost you there. Now I'm confused a little bit. You're saying total height of the entire structure? would
Yeah,
be-
so So, basically what that means is the height above ground level, so the pole is 15
Right.
15 feet, and then there's an advertisement. And I'm over the requirement.
For the square footage. Right.
I thought I was within it, but I had read the wrong,
Yeah.
um,
I kind of agree with you, you know, a 10 by 10 may not be an effective, billboard.
Yeah.
I don't know, it may be in this area, it may not be, I don't know, I'm not, advertising is not my forte, but, how much input, or how much have you been working with the city on this project? Have you been able to get with them, how much back and forth have we talked about on this?
yeah, so I've talked to Terry multiple times about it. I mainly just talked to her about, the applications and how to apply and everything.
Right.
Because I didn't know.
Okay.
It's my first time doing this.
My question is, or my concern or question is, and I have to go back, I've been on this board for a while, and it's been before you guys came on board with the, city. I can't remember what the requirements are for how many billboards and how far apart, because there are requirements, you know, how far apart you can have billboards and so forth. Does this meet that requirement? Because I'm not sure that it does. But I don't know, because it's been so long ago. But in my mind, and I'm kind of directing this at the city, but in my mind, if I remember, we had some billboards that were, I guess, grandfathered in, but there was a limit to how far apart they could be. I forget how many thousands of feet, or 1,500 feet, I think it was, or something like that.
So what's the nearest one close to this place?
I know where it is. I don't know the exact distance. I know how to figure that out, but I don't think it's too close. I remember I remember looking on the Effingham County zoning regulations, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm good on that, but
Right.
I didn't think that there's a billboard.
It is a little
so
bit different again, I believe, and again, I may have to get some more input on this, or get updated information on that.
I don't see it in the sign code portion of it. It just speaks to which districts they're allowed in, and not allowed in, and then the maximum height and the maximum display area. I'll do a quick search, while y'all continue your discussion in public
Okay.
comment.
And while they're talking about that, I'm assuming, and may be wrong, I didn't look at it, is this gonna be lit?
No.
This is gonna be static, no lighting at all?
No,
And
but in the future, I might, if that would be better, I would
Mhm.
definitely want to do that.
Okay. Just to be clear, of course, it's not an animated sign, because then it gets into a whole nother, which is in the code, yeah, you've got a
It's just
LED type thing, which didn't look like that, but I wanted to confirm that that's not what you're looking at here, because that opens up a whole nother, thing that we do have some guidelines on that as well, as far as animated signs,
Yeah.
lit signs, backlit signs, and so forth.
Yeah, it's a lot more.
Mainly, those are not so much for billboards, but for signs that would advertise the building, the business, adjacent to this, but, okay.
And it's a dual face sign, so you're gonna see it north and south. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you know any 12 by 24 signs around here? Is that a standard sign? Is there
Probably
like
all the
ones when
ones
you
that
come
you
into
have.
Lincoln, are those 10 by 20?
Yeah, so 12 by 24 is a standard. It's 12 by 24 and 14 by 48. That's like the larger on the highway. Was a 14 by 48, but from the signs that I've witnessed around here, they're grandfathered in, so they're definitely not allowed now. But it's multiple like faces on one side, from what I've seen. Those are grandfathered in. Mine would just have one face. It'd be a 12 by 24.
Like the billboards as you come into Lincoln, those are grandfathered, we don't know what
That's
size.
from the county.
But I was just trying to
The
get an
size.
idea of what
Probably
the
the size.
size of that is. Is that
I don't know the.
I believe the one,
Special things on it.
I believe the one right there at, I guess it's Walgreens now.
That,
Okay.
That
The
would be, I
advertising
think,
sign.
the marquee, I call it the marquee billboard.
Right about
right,
it.
'cause it- yeah, that's right. And I
Right
believe
Right about
that
the
one's-
dealership?
That's
Yeah, between
That's
the
probably
Rincon, I mean, the
similar.
Chevrolet dealership, and there's that one, and
That's
it's
that
two,
spinning
two
thing at
beds.
the top.
Quite a bit
Yeah,
taller,
it's-
and that one has been there for a while, and I remember that
That one's
because,
been there 20-something years.
you know.
Is that a 12 by?
I do remember why this came up too, it just occurred to me. Somebody wanted to put another sign, which is nothing like what you're doing, but it was denied. It was the, Murphy's station wanted to put, but they were looking at like I think it was a 70 or 50-foot sign or something, 70-foot sign to advertise their gas prices so that people knew that there was a Murphy's back there, and that was nothing like what this guy, what we're looking at here, but that's part of what brought on the signage thing.
Yeah.
I don't see anything, I've searched on Billboard, I went to the 4 or 5 different references, and there's nothing related to separation.
What about, and I hate to tax you with this right now, anything from Effingham County on that? Because, as you said, there are some guidelines that Effingham County has, or State Road. I don't think it was, and, you know, I'm bringing up something that, you know, this guy is not here asking about. He's looking for, you know, he's looking for the square footage, I realize that. But at the same time, I don't want to sit here and say, hey, you know what, it's okay, we're gonna go ahead and go with the square footage, you know, and that's fine. And then we find out that you can't even put it there in the first place. That's what I want to make sure that we don't, you know, give you false hope, and lead you down a path that's, you know,
Yeah.
incorrect. I don't want to do that. And that may be something that we have to discuss a little bit later, or research a little bit further later, to make sure that we're within guidelines,
Yeah.
guidelines there.
I actually remember for Effingham County, the maximum square feet is 300. I'm at 288.
Do you remember the distance between signage?
No, but I do remember there was a regulation on it, but
Yeah.
I remember thinking that I'm okay on the
Yeah.
regulation. I don't think there's.
Well, the nearest sign is quite a
Yeah.
distance away, and I'm thinking it may very well be fine. And also, you gotta think about this, every time we incorporate another piece of land into the city of Rincon, if we keep incorporating on up into Springfield, that opens up, you know, more opportunity for advertising and so forth along Highway 20.
Yeah.
Do we have it, other than that one marquee sign at the car dealership and Walgreens, do we have any other?
Further
billboards?
out towards, I'm trying to remember,
Inside the
further
city limits?
south towards Savannah.
But inside the city?
Yeah.
limits?
Yeah, there was another one. Again, I'm bringing up something that maybe we should just, you know, move on.
I don't know,
because
I'm in my
I hate
head.
to keep, you know, hold him up on something
In
like
my
this.
head, I'm thinking that we're not a big billboard city.
We're not.
So,
I will make sure, I know this doesn't help y'all, but before we go to, before it goes to council, I'll make sure that I have the information. I mean, typically, what's in the county, regulations wouldn't apply here since we're incorporated.
Right.
Our regulations would apply, but I will see if there's anything related, I'll look at the, DOT requirements to see if there's anything about separation of billboards.
and then I have another question, because we're not set up for the larger, bigger billboards. Do we have any permitting rules or any safety mechanisms in place to make sure these things are built correctly and safe and managed safely and contained safely? And it seems like it might be things that we're not even prepared to manage and maintain.
Yeah, I think most of that would probably be, on the onus of the building the building and zoning, building and zoning
the
department, as
tax-
far as, you know,
you
they would have to
tax
make sure
guy
it's been
that's in the
engineered
office
properly.
with them.
And usually, and it sounds like you've already, again, you've discussed this with a sign building company. So they would be able to, they can produce the engineering
Yeah.
to make sure this thing isn't gonna blow over in a
Oh.
big wind. you
It
know.
will. It can withstand up to like 150. I think it says it on there. It can withstand up to very large winds. And I'd also like to say it's also the standard size. So it's not it's not like super big. There's actually a Lamar billboard on the outskirts of Rincon that is significantly bigger. I don't know the exact measurements of it, but it is a lot bigger.
Mhm.
But mine would just be the uniform size.
Okay, well, again, I'm sorry to kind of run down a little bit of a rabbit hole here with that, but I thought it was important to bring up. I wish I'd have mentioned it earlier to you guys in the week, but to be honest, I looked at my paperwork 2 days ago. So I didn't have a lot of time, but anyways. All right, so at this point, let me ask, is there anybody from the public that would like to have any input towards this issue? All right, and I'll also ask, what's the city's recommendation or the city's position on this?
So this one was tough. You know, Michael and I did meet several times to go through both when he submitted his application, found out that it was too large for what our requirements permitted. He did, you know, look into whether he wanted to go for the smaller size or try for the variance. You know, I will say he's been super responsive, you know, talked with me several times about what to expect at the meeting, to make sure that he was well prepared for everything. And one of the things that he did mention, I think he mentioned it here as well, is that, you know, if 12 by 24 is too big, he's amenable to a suggested small, you know, something in between 10 by 10 and 12 by 24. Now, all that being said, looking at the actual criteria for a variance, it is difficult to find what the hardship would be, looking at typical hardship requirements, which are, you know, that there's something about the property that's unusual. I mean, I think you could make a case that typically billboards are X size, but also the city of Lincoln has chosen to have billboards in their sign code and have it at a smaller size, so.
Yeah.
The variance depends on hardship. Is that what was thinking about?
Yeah.
On what?
Variance.
You know, we always look at variance as one of the criteria, of course, is what is the hardship? And a hardship we would be, or a hardship would be, something that is either out of your control, or out of your control, which would require a variance in order to make the project make sense or to make it viable. Something like a variance on a piece of property that's undevelopable, we would have variance maybe for setbacks because it's an odd shape and somebody wants to put a house there and it doesn't make sense. So the hardship would be, if we don't grant that variance, the land is virtually, you know, undevelopable. Or in this case, if there was other things that were limiting the size you could make it, which at this point there really isn't. I mean, it's in an open area, completely open area. Like if there were power lines or something of that nature that could affect that, which by the way, I don't think we have any, there's no concerns about power lines.
No,
in that
there's-
area,
Further
right?
down.
Yeah, it's all on the other side. Okay. All right.
Am I allowed to say one more thing or no?
Absolutely, yeah, sure, but like I said, we're pretty informal here. You know, we wanna get as much input as we can. We want to encourage development,
Mhm.
even though sometimes it seems like we don't, but
Yeah.
we do, we actually do. We just wanna do smart development.
Yeah, I completely understand, and I think the billboard will help advertise whatever developments we get in the city. It would help bring people that commute through. I just wanted to reiterate on the fact that it helped people that commute through to be aware of some of the local businesses. And I also wanted to reiterate the fact that if I were to do a 10 by 10, I'm extremely concerned that if no one were to rent it, I mean, it would just not be rented and it would just look really bad. But I know if it's the standard size that I'll have no problem finding a good advertiser that would want it. But that's just my concern with the 10 by 10. And I'm open to doing somewhere from 10 by 10 to 12 by 24, even though it's not the uniform standard size. So
Right.
but I appreciate your input, all of your input.
Thanks. Anybody else, other comments? All right, I guess I'll call for a motion.
I
do I have to stand up here for them, or do I sit down?
Well, you have to stand on one foot.
I was about to do it.
Just mess.
No, you can sit down.
I told you, we're pretty informal. Please don't, yeah, sit down if you feel more comfortable sitting down, that's fine.
I move we grant the variance as written.
All right, motion on the table for, granting the variance as written. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay,
Roll call again?
yeah, let's do a roll call, please.
Okay.
I deny, no, I'm not agree.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Betty? No. Kelly?
Yes, because you did a good job.
Roy?
No, he did a good job, but. I'm just saying.
Same coin, different side.
Eric? Mona?
No, you did a good job, but no, I'm with Roy.
I just don't want you to think, I don't want you to get discouraged, that you,
Well, let me say this, now that the vote has already been taken, so we're moving that it's denied at this stage. At this point, it still goes on to city council, and, sorry.
I am so sorry to interrupt. Actually,
Sure.
I think because it failed, I think you actually have to make a new motion to deny it, because this was a motion to grant the variance. So I think the proper protocol would be for somebody to now make a motion to deny the variance.
My motion was to approve. No, it's not.
Okay.
Okay, so,
I make the
Okay.
motion to
You're right.
deny it.
okay.
I make a motion to deny it.
motion on the table for denial and
Second.
seconded. How about a show of hands for denial? And that leaves two going the other direction. All right, thanks for interrupting us. You gotta keep me straight. And with the vote now officially done, I wanna mention this. I agree with you that we probably have too limiting of a variance in place here. And it probably is something, that maybe we need to address at the city. And we may need to change our code. Because according to the code, it doesn't make it very usable, or not normally usable in my mind, for a sign at 10 by 10, for a billboard type sign.
Mhm.
Now, for a sign that's advertising somebody's business, I'm okay with that size. So that might be something that maybe we can look into a little bit further. And I just wanted to put that, so that city council maybe sees that note, that I feel like, at this point, I think we should deny this one based on the code as it's written, but perhaps we need to rewrite that code. Because I think it's a very good idea, like them. I think it's a good idea, and I don't think it's a real harm, but it doesn't meet the code, and it doesn't meet the criteria, at least as far as we voted on it, as far as the way the code is written right now.
So if the code gets rewritten, do I resubmit an application, or
So that could be
how
forever.
does that work?
I was gonna say, right, you'd have to wait 6 months if you're looking to do the same thing, but again, it would be, council would have to direct us to change the code, and then we would have to write the new code, and then it would go through the same process that you're going through right now, so we're talking about a few months. So, it's not something that would happen, next month or anything like that, so. But certainly, yeah, if you decided to build a smaller one right now, but again, let me finish that thought. If you decide to build a smaller one right now, you could, and if the code got changed, you could, reapply in 6 months, to put in a bigger one. But keep in mind, you still have, two more meetings to go before there's a final decision. So, the recommendation will go to city council on June 26th, which will be your public hearing. And then council will vote on it on July 10th.
And on a positive note, city council doesn't always go by our recommendations. They may go and say, you know what, we're okay with that, and, because we are just a recommending body to city council, so,
Are we able to recommend, in between the 10 by 10 and 12 by 24?
Yeah, that would be, something that you could talk to city, well, just like you mentioned it to us, that, you know, city council may say, hey, you know what, we don't wanna give you we don't wanna give you a variance for, the what was it, 140 something feet? 188, but they may say, we'll let you go an extra 100 feet. So that may be a condition or a change to it, but maybe if you get with the city on that, they may be able to find something that's a little more, that works best for everybody, for both the city and yourself as well. And then that may help you out there as well. All right?
Can I say a little something for all of y'all? I mean, I know I didn't want to get in the middle of this thing because you're doing such a good job, but, 1965 Federal Highway Beautification Act regulates the distances of, billboards between each other on state routes that are used as emergency access routes, federal highways, things like that. Georgia also has a Georgia Outdoor Advertising Code. Columbia is Highway 21. Generally on this 21 corridor, there is a spacing because it is an emergency access route. So y'all were correct in that, you know, but there's a little more to it. But I thought he did a good job. He denied, but I get told no a lot, don't worry. I developed job and said, I'm used to getting no.
All right then.
That's the word.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 3. An application has been filed by the Pranath, I'm sorry, how's that pronounced? Pranath Incorporated, requesting a site plan approval for the expansion of the existing convenience store, expansion to the existing convenience store building. The property is located at 108 South Columbia Avenue. The parcel is owned by Pranath Incorporated and is zoned general commercial. Parcel number is R2720010. And you are, sir?
Pardon me. Tim Kinsey.
Got it.
I coached Little League game last night and I was cheering on a little bit too much. I lost my voice, so just bear with me.
Sounds like you're passionate for Little League.
Heck yeah, here we go.
Lost it for a good reason.
Well, yeah, that was the first game. Tonight, right now, is game 2 and game 3 as the backup. But while we were going through the first presentation, they called the second game in the third inning because of lightning. But when we left off, it was 10-3. So
Is it all
hopefully,
stars?
yeah. And tomorrow night we'll have our hopefully finish with it. So
All right.
Good luck.
Good deal.
here we go.
All right, here we go.
So, so my client, Pranath Incorporated, they own a convenience store over on 21. It's just a basic gas station with a shop inside, but they want to add a Baldino sub shop on the end of it. And basically what we're looking to do is just add 30 feet onto the end of the building. We're going to match the profile of the roof, the elevation will all be exactly the same. It'll just be literally stretching the building. In this area that we're stretching it over, currently there's a dumpster and a couple AC units. We're going to move the dumpster to the opposite side of the drive, which there's plenty of room. There's actually it's an abandoned car wash, drive-through car wash. He's just using it as a storage, so we're just going to move the enclosure next to this old gas or car wash and do our expansion. It will condense or choke off the drive, the entrance off the back, I think, it's Silver Lake Drive. But it's a pretty wide entrance already, so just in small reduction we're doing, it still allows for two-way traffic quite easily. And then the AC units that we're relocating, we're actually building an alcove in the back side of the building to tuck them inside of, so actually it'd be a nice screening to keep them out of the sun and out of visibility. And then also we had plenty of room for our parking within the site. I mean, they had plenty of room. It wasn't, we're not looking for reductions or anything. We're just doing an extension of this building, seeking approval of this site plan that I've developed for this project.
I'm looking at the photo taken, well, let me just show show you which one it is. I don't know exactly what street it is. This one right here at the bottom, okay?
Yes, sir.
And you're adding right over here where the pickup
Right
truck
in
is.
front of that pickup truck.
Well, I just thought, looking at, that's the best picture, because you said it's gonna be 30 feet out, right?
Exactly.
Average pickup truck is around 25, 20, well, say about 20 feet.
Mm-hmm, yes,
That's an
sir.
extended cab pickup truck, so you're looking at about 20, 22 feet. So just a little bit further past that is what we're looking at. So you guys see the picture I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there was, you know, it doesn't look like to me there's a lot of problem hitting other vehicles, you know, by that area. Like I said, it chokes it off a little, but not really that much. How wide is that? That is, man, I can't read that. What is this? What is that? Can you read that?
That's 40 right there.
40 feet?
36, I believe.
All right, so that leaves about 36.
Yes.
36, you can leave that there, we may need that, if you don't mind. So that leaves about 36 feet. That was my real concern.
Yeah, it's plenty of
But
room.
it's not a concern. That's the only thing I thought was.
You would have noticed that, but I think
Oh, I'm sorry, there was something I wanted to ask about too. Grease traps. Now, I don't know how much, has that been taken into account? Is that gonna be necessary?
Well, I believe we already have a grease trap in
For
the
the-
facility. He's got a kitchen inside the,
Oh, yeah.
That's
In the
what I was gonna,
convenience
yeah.
store,
I
yes.
thought they might have already had it, yeah.
yeah, they already have a grease trap in it, and,
Well, sandwich shops don't tend to have deep fryers, though, do
I know,
they?
that's.
no, but just in the sense of having the floor drain and the
Yeah.
triple compartment sink.
Right. But
Anytime you
you-
have dairy product, you gotta have
Yeah.
a grease trap to intercept the
Right, and
fats.
still, I mean, again, he's thinking about putting in the Valdinas, but, you know, that could change next year.
So
So if
something
Valdinas doesn't work out, they might still wanna put in a, you know, pizza place or,
Yeah, it's,
I don't know, maybe not a fried chicken place, but either way, it sounds like you've got the grease trap situation under control. All right,
Yes,
so
sir.
that's always a
Yes.
concern. Those are my concerns.
So the new parking spaces are in the front, and they're gonna be pretty near the traffic flow for the pumps.
Well, we already have, well, there's already
So the-
spaces there.
Oh, okay.
We're just extending them down. The total required, spaces for this development would be 17, and I'm showing 20,
Right.
plus a handicap, so.
So will a big truck still be able to park over there also?
Yes, ma'am. Most of the people parking, the big
Yeah,
stuff
so-
are on the side closest to
Right.
the intersection, to the lights.
Also, and I'll mention to the city, I mean, it looks like, this is going for final approval, right?
It is, it's going for final approval, the review, they've completed all elements of the review, there's nothing that we're.
Nothing outstanding.
There's nothing outstanding.
Great,
No.
because that's, I just want to confirm that too, that's what I
Absolutely.
thought. And I see there's already landscaping there, which is always a concern.
And they're adding landscaping in front of where the dumpster's being relocated, they're adding some, additional landscaping there.
Was there any talk about how close that was to Sunlight?
The franchise, they do have a franchise agreement with Baldino's, and that was quite extensive. Mr. Edwards, Gene Edwards,
Seriously?
yeah, they don't like to, I mean, there's a certain distance they look at being between other sandwich shops and stuff.
I don't want to be far away from the sandwich shop either, but.
No, he's,
Okay, I was just curious.
So y'all associate with Baldino's in Springfield? Are y'all associate with Baldino's in Springfield?
well, it's the same owner, well,
Same owner?
he franchises it.
Okay.
He's the convenience store owner purchases the franchise, and
Okay.
then we put in all the fixtures and the, branding elements in it, but it's, we're all individually owned and operated.
I have to ask this question because it's just killing me. My husband, I have to qualify, my husband owns a plumbing business, and I know you do building. And you know when you see blueprints, you always look at the tiny print, because that's the thing that'll cost you the most money. And your tiny print on here out by the road says payphone.
Well, that's,
I just said, what? It just caught my attention, I'm sorry.
where's,
Where is that?
Old survey.
we didn't put that in.
I
You know, it'll probably be, it'll
This is
probably be some
more
guy
property.
standing with a cell phone, but you gotta pay him to use his
But I
cell
saw
phone.
that and I said, I gotta ask that question.
Where is
What
that?
sheet? It's on,
A01?
this sheet.
This number at the bottom.
In
That's
bottom
the
left? Is that
surveyor,
what
now
that
they
is?
survey that.
Pay phone, and I said, okay, I gotta ask the question.
Well, that's the surveyors, well, there's documenting everything that's on the site,
Y'all,
so
it's late, we get a little punchy out here.
whatever, you know, whatever shows up, they mark it. So.
You know, I walked the site, I didn't see a payphone.
I was gonna say, same thing. I walked around that whole site a couple of times and didn't see a payphone, so.
Maybe it's a back payphone. And you don't know, you never see it, it comes out of the ground.
All right, city's recommendation on this, city's position.
Approval, so
Okay.
they've met all the requirements and I issued them an approval
All
letter
right, thank
for
you.
the city requirements.
And anybody, from the, that's all right, yeah, anybody from the, public that would like to have any input on this? All right. Any other further comments from the board?
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, then, motion on the table for accept,
I'll second.
and already accepted, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Well, that was a whole lot easier than the last two.
I'll make sure one.
But,
You know, the last one goes real fast.
yeah, I know. You want this one back?
Yeah. I'm gonna be watching for the pay phone.
I hear you.
We wanna see that thing. You know, that would be a tourist attraction, if you put it out there. You actually get more business that way, probably. All right. Exactly. Get a little red box out there.
Wow.
All right, guys, moving on. Number 4, the application has been filed by Rinkin Express LLC requesting a site plan approval to construct a 4,596 square foot car wash facility. The property is located at 450 South Columbia Avenue. The parcel is owned by South Georgia Prime Properties LLC and is zoned general commercial. Parcel number is R2570051. And thank you for your patience. And sorry you're number 4, but sometimes that's the way it goes.
I've been much further down.
If you would give us your name, please, and just give us an idea what you're looking to do there.
My name is Jacob Lang. I'm a retail developer and local to the area. We sold a bunch of our car washes a couple of years ago to the REITs, ones in Atlanta and Brunswick. But I live here, wanted to build one here. So I finally bought the KFC Taco Bell. It's sat there vacant for a long time because it had a food restriction. I'm a retail developer got tired of all my restaurant tenants wanting to be there, and we couldn't afford to buy it with the restrictions, so I decided to put a car wash on it. I'll give everybody constructive notice that it can't be bought for a restaurant. We can maybe move them to the Burger King or wherever it may be. But also the one, Dr. Suds, now, Take 5, it's hard to circulate, it doesn't function too well, so I think there's a pretty good opportunity to put a new car wash in here and do well with it and provide a higher level of service and enjoyment and capture some of the Walmart traffic. We typically put ours in front of Walmart. When Dr. Suds got here, I was trying to put it where I built the AT&T and mattress store, but I had to get a release from Lowe's, and the car wash equipment salesman told Dr. Suds, and they came on down the road. So anyway, it's competitive business. You want to be on the best location. So that's how we ended up at the KFC Taco Bell. Just been sitting there. I've been trying to buy KFC since about a year before it closed, when I knew they were reloading. And it took 7 years to buy it. So Inman Hodges owned it. He also owns the KFC Taco Bell and Dairy Queen that's here, is why he didn't want food on it, because it may impact those businesses. And I worked for years to try to release that restriction of his, but it just wasn't happening. Many people did. But anyway, that's what we're building. We're actually marginally increasing the green space. The road in front of this property and in front of the BB&T and all is a private access easement from when the Walmart was originally built and developed by Mr. Harper. And I am going to fix the road on my parcel. I cannot get legal right to patch the road on other people's parcels. The way the easement agreement was set up, each individual property owner is responsible for their maintenance. So
you're only responsible for part of that road in front of your business?
Yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
And my property line runs all the way out to Highway 21, so I can fix it and I will be
Discussed in
fixing
city
it.
council meeting, yeah. Everybody responsible for them in front.
So that's what the league, you know, I've had some residents, once I made the application, call me, like, want me to fix the whole road. And I'm like, well, I've tried to get Walmart, I've tried to get everybody involved, nobody is gonna
Mhm.
do it till they have to. But I have committed to, and staff brought it up to me too, and I have committed to, fixing it, whatever course that may take. I'll have to tear a little bit of it up during construction and figure out what's wrong with it. My suspicion, I'm a civil engineer by trade, my suspicion is the sub-base was never prepared properly. But, you know, we'll fix that, whatever it takes to make sure it's adequately addressed, because it's in pretty poor shape. Let's see, is there anything else?
Will that inhibit traffic during that time period, going down?
There will be a period, yes, I will have to close that and inconvenience people. It'll probably be a week, 4 days, something, you know, maybe after hours, maybe something we can tear up, leave open during the daytime, tear up in the evenings. I'm not sure the extent of the repair, so I wouldn't commit to that yet. Like I said, but the only way to tell what we can do, we cored a few samples, but the samples we cored were adequate. So I think there's just some soft spots where they didn't backfill tree stumps or something when they built the road originally, probably just got some soft spots. Or, you know, I mean, the useful life of a road's normally 20 years back then when it was designed, so depending on the structural number calculation and the loading, you know, it may just be experiencing more traffic than it was ever supposed to have.
What style of car wash is this?
This is gonna be an express car wash, which is you vacuum your own, you clean your own. We'll have, our operation is typically a little higher ticket price than like the Take 5. And we will have a club here. Some of our locations, we don't have a club, but based on incomes, demographics, and psychographics here, we will have a club. We will not be the cheapest though, because we typically have a couple extra personnel on staff to make sure the vacuums are clean, the trash is taken out regularly, the thing operates. We'll have, instead of a general untrained manager, we typically recruit an auto mechanic type manager with good customer service to keep errands up. Like, a lot of people don't realize when Dr. Suds or whatever it's called now, Take 5 is dying. These REITs, when they buy them, they don't keep excess parts on the shelf in the car wash or somebody that can fix it. So they have to get the part there, they have to get a service truck there, you know, so we typically pay our manager a little more to get somebody who can fix those problems day of, next morning, if the part's FedExed in. So that costs money, so we typically have a little higher ticket price. There'll be an express drive-through, yes. And we have long history of operating these. I think I did my first one in 2011 maybe, in Locust Grove, Georgia, which is much like Ringgold, doesn't have property tax. You know, good little city to develop in. And, but anyway, we'll do the best job we can building it. It'll be high quality, it'll be steel and masonry, there's very little wood. The Dr. Suds building, I'm not beating it up, but some of the car washes like that one, it has wood rafters and things like that. And I mean, if you think about untreated wood with water slinging everywhere, you know, it all changes how they function and operate. But I'm from here and just, I don't know, worked in auto shops in Rankin and Springfield, after the farm in the back, and I just always like something extra. But normally I develop just shopping centers and things.
So I just want to just clarify everything, just make sure I'm reading it right. Again, I would like to do that. So you would enter this as looking at the regular layout that you got here.
That's correct.
A person would come and enter from the top left.
Let me see which way you're looking at this, 'cause I don't have.
I'm looking at this.
Which one that is? One?
Either one of them you're looking at,
Okay.
anyone, but I'm looking at C1.
Okay.
So you would, a car would enter from the top left, correct?
Top left being the
Of
Walmart
this,
parking field?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking at this.
A car would enter from the main Walmart parking drive.
So I'm looking at this, so they come in this way.
This is the only
Yeah.
entrance.
Oh, that's the only entrance,
Yeah,
this is
as
only.
far
an
as
exit.
way as we can get it from the signal on Highway 21, so
Okay,
if
well,
they
that's
come,
part, but, so what's gonna happen is they're gonna travel this way, they're going to pay, I guess, at this area, and then bring it around,
They'll pay right here.
oh, this, I'm sorry, you're right,
Yeah, that's
this
a
way.
so we do 3 pay stations, not 2, because that generally helps us not back up.
Gotcha.
Get people through, and then they'll come in like this. So if you had a vehicle that could not make it in there, we kick them out like this.
Okay,
Right, some people might come through there and they might have a, say an old car that has the antennas that went up when you turn on the radio and it won't go down, you know, we have somebody trying to stop people's cars from getting torn up.
okay.
So we'll kick them out, and that's what that road is for.
Mhm.
They come through here,
And
they
then,
can then exit or drive through here and exit or circulate through the vacuum.
right, that's what I was, that's
So,
what I wanted to make
if
sure.
you've
that the
ever
traffic-
been through Dr.
And I'm glad I asked because I had that wrong, I thought they were coming
Yeah.
from that spot.
If you've ever been through Dr. Suds, you know, you have, or Take 5 now or whatever it is, you have a terrible conflict because everybody has to come and go through the same little thread.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll be able, just that alone, we'll probably be able to get a higher than average ticket price. Because people enjoy the experience. Older people won't have, I mean, a lot of older people don't like to back up into traffic that's busy and congested. So we'll have some of that. You know, or Take 5 is a big brand owned by Driven Brands. They will have advantages we don't. You know, you're in their club. If you go to any of their 400 locations, you can get your car washed, whatever city you're in. You know, now that we've sold the ones we had, this will be our first one. I'm doing one on Wilmington Island as well, and got one in Richmond Hill underway. So we're doing a few more now closer to home. So.
Okay, so when they come out, if they decide not to go around to the vacuums, they can go out, and they would be going out right at the corner of the main thoroughfare going into Walmart. Here.
No, the access road, that's the access.
If they just want to come out, they would come out. This is Walmart's main road,
Correct.
and this is your furniture.
Correct. And that is the existing full access and exit for the KFC drive-through.
And then that's everyone's exit out of there, correct? If they even vacuum, they'll go out.
No, if they vacuum, you'll see the arrows and the striping and there's some signs. Just staff did make good comments about that, so we had to put some wayfinding, so they'll come out here and they vacuum, directional vacuum. They're not right here.
They'll come out here.
Yeah, this is why we have this blocked off, so that people can then, so it doesn't get congested, so that anybody can get in with this.
You'll have 2 lanes, one coming in, one going out.
Yes, ma'am, but that big, there's a big blocked out X, so people don't block the intersection. Like I say, operationally, it's critical that, people can circulate easily and safely, because there are people out in their cars, vacuuming or what have you, and, on a Saturday, this location will do 700 or 800 cars. So it'll be busy.
Are the hours of operation about the same as Take 5?
Yeah, will probably be, if I had to guess, in a city with the psychographics in Ringgold, probably 10 a.m. in the morning to about 8 p.m. We are doing some uplighting on the building to make it warmer. Try to get some after hour sales, but most people don't like to wash their cars in the dark.
What's the construction time?
We hope to start in August, and it generally takes me about 120 days to build the building, and then about another 90 to fixture the car wash equipment properly, and train staff and get it. And so we're probably 9 months from opening from today, 10 months.
How long is the demo?
The demo will take 4 days, 3 days. Probably, maybe, could take a little longer, just depending on what size contractor we hire, but most of our demo guys will just be in and out. But the vertical construction should be about 120 days, and then, like I said, the fixturing is where you get into long lead time. These take specialty plumbers and specialty electricians, and the drawings from the car wash equipment companies aren't very good. So we get at mercy of getting the right master electrician. Who I'm doing some in North Dakota and South Dakota, and right now. So depending on where he's at, working right now. We have to fly them in and we generally hire a local electrician. These car washes have taken off, so these older guys who are really good at it are now like high-paid consulted electricians that come in and coach the actual guys here how to go about it. So that could bog it down, some of that stuff, construction. You know, I hope y'all will give me a favorable
And your
approval.
landscaping is all, I see the landscaping.
Yes, I don't like the landscaping, but we have it. I mean, the staff knows, you know, y'all's ordinance says, you'll have one tree per 40 foot of frontage. It doesn't specifically specify they have to be spaced 40 foot on center. But staff interpret it that way, so we put them that way, you know, because obviously it's a car wash. We were gonna have the trees, but we're gonna try to have them where it still was bright and vibrant from the street to encourage people to wash their cars. But I think being in front of Walmart, it really doesn't matter. I mean, people go in there and drop their partner off to go in and get some milk and whatever, and the other one runs through the car wash. It happens all the time. Plus, we're gonna, I mean, the city has pretty favorable signage regulations, for single tenant stuff. You know, and y'all paved the way for the larger projects like Kroger and Walmart and that kind of stuff for signage variance.
Speaking of signage, you don't see any, so you're telling me you don't see any possible need for any variances for signage?
I don't know, I wouldn't apply for them, but that old KFC sign post and all is still there, and I'm not sure how many square feet it is. The city's ordinance is 100 square feet. You're probably just going to reuse that same sign, just put new signage, freshen it up. Since it was still there, so I haven't asked the city, I haven't applied for a sign permit yet. So 100 square feet is adequate for me, but if it comes to building a new $30,000 sign or reusing that one, and that one's 112, I'd probably come in and try to ask for 112 foot, just so I didn't have to build a whole new sign.
Well, when I asked about that is, and we are liberal when it comes to directional signs, which seems to be super important in this
It is.
case. I mean, in the car wash case, because like you said, the flow is you gotta keep them moving through that car wash. And I can see you're gonna have to have, or you're probably gonna wanna have some smaller directional signs around, which don't normally run into a variance issue, so.
They're allowed, what, 3
Yeah.
square feet? maybe?
I just wanna make sure that, you know, because sometimes folks, you're in a corner lot and they don't realize, hey, you can't put a big giant sign in every four sides of the building, you know, so keep that
That's
in
right.
mind.
I
Yeah.
think, speaking of that, I haven't looked specifically at our wall signage yet, but I can't recall, but I mean.
Yeah,
they're
I
gonna see
don't
it.
think it, I mean, I don't see a potential problem. I mean, in other words, I don't see that it's gonna, you know, whatever our zoning is, I don't see how that's gonna limit, you know, your business by, you know, having to get an ordinance. I mean, our signage is fairly liberal when it comes to something like directional signs. But again, we usually have one face sign and a standing sign, or a marquee type sign or something like that. So I think it'll be fine. I just
I
didn't
think
know
it's
if that was
one per
something.
road frontage, isn't it, Kurt? I can't recall. But I don't think
Yes,
it'll
it-
be a problem if I had to.
It's 1%.
If I wanted it on 2 sides, I can see if I had to ask for variance for that, I would just have the signage
No.
allowance signage, you know, make them smaller or something.
I don't think you're gonna have a problem, and you're right, if you use that sign, I think he's gonna be fine with that. You
Yeah,
know,
and I mean, when it's
sort of-
open, you got cars
Please get rid
rolling out
of
of
the
there.
bucket on the top, would you mind cutting that off? The
Fill it up with
skeleton
beer.
of the bucket.
Skeleton is there, yeah.
Yeah, it's,
it does, to be honest with you, it's a little bit of an eyesore when
Oh,
you
it
come in
looks,
drinking. I mean,
it
looks
looks
like-
bad, it looks bad, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. Like I say, I've looked at this for a long time, and moving back here, I'm always trying to recruit restaurants and things here, right? I mean, I did the Stoners in Springfield, I did the Paddles Coffee Shop in Springfield, I moved back. I was moving back to my grandma's house, I couldn't even have a coffee at a business meeting in Springfield, you know, I was like, I gotta have some coffee. And then you roll through those things, and you see in Rincon, my office is right here by the Bank of America, you know, for a sit-down lunch, I'm limited like 3 or 4 options.
Mhm.
And we've tried really hard, and we're really close to being able to attract a few decent sit-down restaurants. We're close. We have 2 national breakfast concepts that want to be here. We have a couple of sit-down quick service. They're still quick service style, not like Longhorns, but still more like Applebee's type stuff. that are looking in the market right now, so y'all will be getting some of that in the very near future.
All right, anything, what's the city's?
So recommend approval, so same thing, this one was actually already under review when I, came on board, so I came in, I think, maybe at the second review and, worked through, various comments and got it to the point where, we recommended approval, like final approval. He submitted everything that we need for this.
Okay. Well, you now are the public, so if you have any comments, this is your opportunity.
Okay, I like the idea that he said that it would be easy access, because that, he's right about the 5. Is if you accidentally turn in there, you can't even get, it's hard to get out.
You
Because
can't
it's
get
got
out.
one-
You can't get out.
You gotta go
can't
through it.
get- You gotta go through. So, I do like that idea.
And when they charge you wrong, you have to call India. I'm just telling you. You literally, because I had talked to a really nice guy who got me my money back. I said, where are you at? He says, India. And I said, well, nice to meet you.
It's rough. A lot of those car washes, if you wanna cancel your membership, to make you actually go in and fill out a piece of paper, But you can sign up anywhere on a phone or anything with a credit card, we don't, why
And the
not
name
operate
gonna be
that
called
way?
Rincon Express, or what's it gonna be called?
That's just the entity. It'll either be Shine and Go, which was our old brand that we sold, or I've started creating a new brand, Corner Car Wash. And Rincon, it's because Rincon, is Spanish for corner. And Corner Car Wash, we try to have a more local feel. I grew up here, and I think these REITs and hedge funds that have bought, like Dr. Suss, turned it into a Take 5, calling people in India. I think there's a way for me to exploit that and have a more local feel, have our managers in the Rotary or whatever. So I felt like the Corner Car Wash was like a play on the corner store. And this new building, it's gonna have a corner glass entry on it. I don't know if y'all have seen the building plans yet, but I have tried to look at that. How can we dress up the end of these tunnels and make them feel a little less like a car wash? I mean, there still have to be a car wash. You're still running the car through there, it's still coming out the exit. I was like, if I can dress that end up with some storefront and maybe some interior lighting and, something. It's still an equipment room, but if I can do something to dress it up, we're gonna try to do that. So that's what I would like to name it Corner Car Wash, but I have 3 partners who want us just to use Shine and Go since we already have websites. The cost, they're, in my opinion, they're penny wise and dollar foolish, but they all are partners and they're much older than me. So I respect them a little bit.
Any other comments from the board or from the city? Call for motion.
I make the motion that we accept it.
On the table for a motion for approval and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right then.
Thank you very much. Thank y'all for your service.
Thank you for investing in our city.
Thank y'all.
That's fine. I got you. No problem. Thanks for sticking it out. Yeah, we took a little longer on a couple things than we expected.
Yeah, I'm driving back to go ahead by myself now, because my family is
The only thing we have is voting on the rules of procedure that,
And this can go real fast.
yeah, y'all reviewed it last time in depth, so this is just the vote to,
Yes.
Right. Is
To
there any
adopt it.
comments on this? I think
And
we kinda
nothing's
covered
changed,
it.
because we
Nothing's
basically
changed.
everything right now, right?
Give us
We're
30
putting it in
seconds.
writing, correct?
I'm sorry?
We do everything now, we're just putting it in writing.
That's right.
All right, so are we willing to,
Not here.
well, let me officially, there ask for any input from the city, from the public.